The alarm sounded at 3 in the morning at Peterson Space Force Base in Colorado. Lieutenant Jake Morrison had been half asleep at his desk when the screen in front of him suddenly lit up with red warnings. His coffee cup nearly fell to the floor as he jumped up and stared at what the sensors were showing him. Something had just appeared in space above Earth. Not one thing, but dozens of them. Big things. Really big things. Jake grabbed his phone and called Colonel Henry Shaw. The colonel answered on the second ring, his voice rough from sleep. "Sir, we have a situation. You need to get to the command center right now." 20 minutes later, Shaw stood next to Jake, looking at the same screen. His face had gone pale. In his 30 years of military service, he had never seen anything like this. The objects were massive, at least 3 times the size of any spacecraft humans had ever built, and they were just sitting there in orbit like they owned the place. "How many?" Shaw asked. 42 ships, sir, and they are definitely ships. The readings show power sources, metal hulls, and they are holding perfect formation. Shaw picked up the red phone that connected directly to the Pentagon. Within minutes, every military base in the country was on high alert. The president was woken up and brought to a secure location. Scientists were pulled from their beds and rushed to command centers. At 8 in the morning, the aliens made contact. Every television screen on Earth suddenly showed the same image. A tall creature stood before the camera. It had long limbs, a thin body, and a face that looked almost human, but not quite. Its skin was pale blue and its eyes were large and dark. "People of Earth," the creature said in perfect English, "I am Commander Zexthar of the Velkari Empire. We have come to bring your world into our empire. You have 48 hours to surrender. If you refuse, we will take your planet by force. Resistance is pointless. We have conquered 200 worlds. Yours will be next." The message ended. The screens went back to normal. But nothing would ever be normal again. Admiral Lisa Grant called an emergency meeting at the Pentagon. She was the highest-ranking military officer in the country, and now she had to figure out how to deal with an alien invasion. The room filled quickly with generals, scientists, and government officials. "What do we know about them?" Grant asked. A young scientist named Dr. Alan Cooper stood up. He had been brought in from MIT because he was one of the best minds in physics. He looked nervous but determined. "I have been studying their transmissions and ship data. The Velkari are clearly more advanced than us. Their ships use technology we do not understand, but I found something interesting in their message." Commander Zexthar mentioned their homeworld briefly. "According to the data hidden in their transmission, their planet has much lower gravity than Earth." "How much lower?" Grant asked. "About 40% of what we have here. That means if you weigh 100 pounds on their world, you would weigh 250 pounds here on Earth." An officer in the back spoke up. "So what? They probably have technology to deal with that." Dr. Cooper nodded. "Probably, but it is worth noting." Katie Walsh, a scientist from NASA, raised her hand. She had been studying the star charts that the Velkari transmission contained. "I have been looking at the worlds they claim to have conquered. All of them, every single one, has low gravity. The highest is only 60% of Earth's gravity. None of them are like our planet." The room went quiet. People looked at each other. Someone asked the obvious question. "Why would an empire that conquers worlds avoid high-gravity planets?" Dr. Cooper answered. "Maybe they cannot handle them. Maybe their bodies, their biology, evolved on low-gravity worlds. They might not be able to function properly here." Admiral Grant leaned forward. "Are you telling me that Earth's gravity might be a problem for them?" "It is just a theory," Cooper said. "But it fits the data." Grant looked around the room. "We have 48 hours to decide if we surrender or fight. If there is even a chance that gravity gives us an advantage, we need to prepare for it. Get every scientist working on this. I want to know everything about low-gravity biology, and I want every military unit ready to fight." The next day passed in a blur of activity. Around the world, armies prepared for war. Cities were evacuated. Weapons were moved into position. But behind the scenes, scientists were working on something else. They were studying what happens to bodies designed for low gravity when they encounter high gravity. Jake Morrison did not sleep for 2 days. He watched the alien ships in orbit, tracked their movements, and waited for them to make a move. He thought about his family in Oregon, his mom and dad, his little sister. Were they safe? Would any of them survive what was coming? On the second day, Katie Walsh made a presentation to the military command. She showed videos of what happens to the human body in different gravity levels. She explained how muscles, bones, and organs all adapt to the gravity they grow up in. If the Velkari evolved on a low-gravity world, she said, their bodies will be optimized for that environment. Their hearts will be smaller. Their bones will be thinner. Their muscles will be weaker. When they come to Earth, they will weigh more than twice what they are used to. Imagine if you suddenly weighed 500 pounds instead of 200. Could you even stand up? Admiral Grant asked, what about their technology? Their armor and suits? That is the question, Katie said. We do not know if their technology can compensate enough. But there are limits to what even advanced technology can do against basic physics. The 48 hours came to an end. President Daniel Foster gave the Velkari their answer. Earth would not surrender. The people of this planet would fight for their freedom. In orbit, Commander Zexthar received the message and felt satisfaction. Humans were brave but stupid. He had expected this answer. Now he would show them the power of the Velkari Empire. He gave the order to his fleet. Begin the invasion. Send the dropships. Target major cities. We will take this world in less than a week. The dropships launched from the carrier vessels. They were sleek and deadly, designed for planetary assault. Inside each ship were 50 Velkari warriors, the finest soldiers in the Empire. They wore powered armor that made them strong and nearly invincible. They carried weapons that could cut through steel. The first wave of dropships entered Earth's atmosphere. Flames surrounded them as they fell through the sky like meteors. Air raid sirens wailed in cities across the globe. People ran to shelters. Soldiers took their positions. In Los Angeles, Captain Greg Palmer watched through binoculars as the first dropship landed in the middle of downtown. The ramp lowered with a hiss of hydraulics. Smoke poured out. Then the Velkari warriors began to emerge. Palmer expected them to charge out, weapons firing. Instead, something strange happened. The first warrior took 2 steps and fell forward onto his face. The second one made it 3 steps before his legs buckled and he collapsed. One by one, the Velkari came out of the ship and fell down. Palmer looked at his sergeant. What the hell is happening? Around the world, the same scene played out. In Tokyo, Mumbai, London, and New York, the Velkari warriors stumbled and fell. Some managed to stay on their feet for a few minutes, but they moved slowly, like they were walking through mud. Their powered armor sparked and whined, struggling under loads it was never designed to carry. The invasion had begun. But something was very, very wrong. Captain Greg Palmer could not believe what he was seeing. The alien warriors were supposed to be unstoppable. The Velkari had conquered 200 worlds. But here in Los Angeles, they were lying on the ground like fish out of water. One Velkari managed to get to his knees. His armor made loud grinding sounds. He tried to raise his weapon, but the gun seemed too heavy for him. His arm shook with effort. Finally, he got the weapon pointed at the human soldiers who were watching from behind concrete barriers. The alien fired. A bolt of blue energy shot from the gun and hit a car, melting a hole through the metal. But the recoil from the shot threw the Velkari backward. He landed hard on his back. His armor legs kicked weakly, but he could not get back up. It was like watching a turtle that had been flipped over. Sergeant Linda Hayes turned to Palmer. Sir, what are your orders? Palmer was trying to process what he was seeing. Hold position. Do not fire unless they show they can actually fight back. I think the scientists were right. Gravity is killing them. More Velkari were trying to exit the dropship. One warrior made it about 10 feet before his armor gave out completely. Sparks flew from the joints. The alien inside made a sound that might have been a scream. The suit fell forward and did not move again. In the dropship, Palmer could see more warriors. They were not even trying to come out anymore. They were just sitting inside, probably realizing that stepping onto Earth's surface was like jumping into quicksand. Similar scenes were happening across the planet. In Tokyo, the Japanese Self-Defense Force watched as Velkari warriors struggled to even breathe in the heavy gravity. In Mumbai, Indian soldiers carefully approached a grounded dropship. The aliens inside did not resist. They just sat there, defeated by physics. Commander Zexthar stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the reports coming in from the surface. Every single landing site was reporting the same thing. His warriors could not fight. Most could not even stand. The invasion was failing, and it had nothing to do with human weapons or defenses. Get me Science Officer Calrix, Zexthar ordered. The science officer appeared on screen a moment later. She looked worried. Commander, I have been analyzing the reports. The problem is worse than we thought. The planet's gravity is crushing our warriors. Their armor cannot compensate for the difference. Even our strongest soldiers are helpless down there. Zexthar felt anger rising in him. This is impossible. We have invasion protocols for different gravity levels. We have the technology to handle this. Yes, Commander, but those protocols were designed for planets up to 60% higher gravity than our homeworld. Earth is 150% higher. Our equipment simply cannot handle it. The power cells drain too quickly. The servos burn out. And even if the armor works, the warriors inside are suffering. Their hearts cannot pump blood properly in that gravity. Some are losing consciousness just from trying to stand. The commander closed his eyes. In all his years of service, he had never lost a battle. He had never even imagined losing a battle. And now he was being defeated by something as simple as gravity. Back on Earth, the initial shock was wearing off. Human forces began to carefully secure the landing zones. In New York, Lieutenant Danny Ross led a squad to approach one of the grounded dropships. They moved carefully, weapons ready, expecting a trap. When they got close, Ross could see through the open ramp. The Velkari inside were sitting or lying down. Their armor was powered down to save energy. One alien saw the humans approaching and raised a hand. Not to attack, but in what looked like surrender. Ross had studied some basic alien communication before the invasion. He spoke into his radio. "Command, the aliens in this ship are not hostile. They appear to be unable to move. Requesting orders." The response came back quickly. "Secure the area. We are sending medical teams and scientists. Do not harm the aliens unless they attack first." Within hours, the first reports were being compiled. Out of the 5,000 Velkari warriors who had landed in the first wave, not a single one was combat effective. Most were severely injured just from trying to move in Earth's gravity. Some had died when their armor failed, and they were crushed by their own body weight. Dr. Alan Cooper was brought to one of the secured landing sites in Nevada. He wore a protective suit as he approached a fallen Velkari warrior. The alien was still alive, breathing heavily inside his damaged armor. Cooper's instruments measured the vital signs. "His heart rate is through the roof," Cooper said to his team. "Blood pressure is dangerously high. His body is working 3 times as hard just to keep him alive. It is like he is constantly lifting weights that are too heavy for him." Katie Walsh was examining another Velkari nearby. This one had been extracted from his armor and was lying in a specially prepared low-gravity chamber. The chamber used magnetic fields to simulate the lighter gravity of the alien homeworld. "Look at his bone structure," Katie said, pointing to the X-ray images on her tablet. "His bones are thin, almost hollow in places. They are built for low gravity. On Earth, those bones have to support much more weight than they were designed for. Some of them are showing stress fractures just from him trying to walk." News of the failed invasion spread around the world. People who had been hiding in shelters came out. There were celebrations in the streets. Earth had faced an alien empire and won without firing a single shot. But in the Pentagon, Admiral Grant was not celebrating. She looked at the satellite images of the Velkari fleet still in orbit. Those ships had weapons, powerful weapons. If the aliens decided to bombard Earth from space, there was not much humanity could do to stop them. "We need to assume they will try something else," Grant said to her staff. "They cannot invade on foot, but they might try to destroy us from orbit. Get me options." Colonel Patricia Moore, a strategic planner, stood up. "We have one advantage. We know they cannot operate in our gravity, but that also means we can handle higher forces than they can. If we take the fight to them in space, our pilots might be able to outmaneuver their ships." "Explain," Grant said. Moore brought up a display showing flight dynamics. In space combat, the ability to handle high G-forces matters. A pilot who can stay conscious during a 10G turn has an advantage over someone who blacks out at 5G. We evolved in high gravity. Our bodies are naturally tougher. We might be able to fly in ways they cannot match. Grant thought about it. That is a big might. We are talking about going up against ships that are far more advanced than anything we have. True, Moore agreed. But they thought they were going up against primitive humans. They did not expect gravity to matter. Maybe they will make other wrong assumptions. In orbit, Zexthar was having a similar conversation with his officers. They had 3 options. They could bombard Earth from space, destroying the cities but making the planet useless for colonization. They could retreat and report their failure to the Empire, which would be humiliating, or they could try to adapt and find a way to conquer Earth despite the gravity problem. "We need better armor," Zexthar said. stronger power supplies. We will build new equipment specifically for this planet. It will take time, but we will do it. His chief engineer looked doubtful. Commander, even with better equipment, our warriors will be at a severe disadvantage. Perhaps we should consider other options. There are no other options, Zexthar said firmly. The Empire does not accept failure. We will find a way. 3 days later, the second wave of Velkari dropships descended to Earth. These were different from the first wave. The armor was bulkier, covered in extra support structures. The power cells were 3 times as large. The Velkari had worked around the clock to modify their equipment for high-gravity operations. Captain Greg Palmer was back at his post in Los Angeles. He watched the new dropships land. This time, when the ramps lowered, the Velkari warriors managed to walk out. They moved slowly and carefully, but they were mobile. All units, weapons ready, Palmer said into his radio. Looks like they figured out how to move. The Velkari formed up in a defensive position near their dropship. Their movements were slow and clumsy compared to what their armor should allow. But they were standing. They were holding weapons. And they were ready to fight. Palmer gave the order. Open fire. Gunfire erupted across the landing zone. Bullets struck the Velkari armor. The aliens returned fire, their energy weapons cutting through concrete and metal. But their aim was poor. Their movements were too slow. They could not dodge or take cover effectively because the heavy armor made them awkward. Within minutes, the battle was over. The Velkari had tried to fight, but they were no match for human soldiers on Earth's surface. Their heavy armor made them easy targets. Their slow movements made them vulnerable. And when their armor was damaged, they were helpless. The second invasion wave failed just like the first. The Velkari retreated to their ships, leaving behind destroyed dropships and wounded warriors. Earth remained free. But everyone knew this was not over. Commander Zexithar sat alone in his quarters, staring at the failure reports. 2 invasion attempts, 2 complete failures. He had lost nearly 8,000 warriors not to enemy fire, but to something as basic as planetary gravity. The High Command would not be pleased. His communicator chimed. The face that appeared on screen made his blood run cold. It was Supreme Commander Vecnor, the head of the entire Velkari military. Vecnor did not usually contact field commanders unless something was very wrong. Commander Zexthar, Vecnor said, his voice cold and sharp. I have read your reports. Explain to me how the mighty Velkari Empire has been stopped by a planet of primitives who barely have spaceflight. Zexthar straightened his back. Supreme Commander, the humans have not stopped us. The planet itself is the problem. The gravity is far stronger than anything we have encountered before. Our equipment is not designed for such conditions. Then design new equipment. Find a solution. The Empire cannot afford to look weak. If word spreads that we were defeated by simple physics, other worlds might rebel. You have one more chance, Commander. Either succeed, or I will find someone who can. The screen went dark. Zexthar knew what that meant. Failure was not an option anymore. His career, possibly his life, depended on conquering Earth. He called his senior staff together. Science Officer Calrix, Chief Engineer Torval, and Military Advisor Sekrin gathered in the conference room. They all looked tired and worried. We need solutions, Zexthar said. I do not care how difficult or expensive they are. We must find a way to operate on that planet. Calrix spoke first. Commander, I have been studying the problem extensively. The issue is not just equipment. It is biology. Our species evolved on a low-gravity world. Every part of our bodies, from our hearts to our bones to our muscles, is optimized for that environment. When we go to Earth, our bodies simply cannot function properly, no matter how good our armor is. What about smaller teams? Sekrin suggested. If we cannot send large invasion forces, perhaps we can send small groups of our best warriors. They could strike specific targets, disrupt human command and control. Torval shook his head. Even our best warriors can only operate on Earth for short periods before the strain becomes too much. The armor helps, but it cannot eliminate the problem. At most, a warrior might be combat effective for 30 minutes before exhaustion sets in. Zexthar thought about it. What if we do not try to conquer the whole planet? What if we take specific locations, places that are strategically important? Like what? Calrix asked. Their military bases, their government buildings. If we can capture or destroy their leadership, maybe they will surrender without a full invasion. The others considered this. It was not a perfect plan, but it might work. They spent the next several hours planning a third attempt. This time, they would use smaller, faster dropships. Elite warriors would strike at key targets around the world. They would get in, do as much damage as possible, and get out before the gravity killed them. On Earth, President Daniel Foster addressed the nation from the White House. His face was serious as he spoke to cameras broadcasting to the world. My fellow Americans and citizens of Earth, we have faced the Valkyrie invasion twice now, and twice we have prevailed. But we must not become overconfident. The alien fleet is still in orbit. They still pose a threat. I am authorizing increased military spending and calling for international cooperation. We must stand together. At NASA headquarters, Katie Walsh was working with a new team. They were no longer just studying the Valkyrie. They were planning Earth's first real military space program. If the aliens could not invade Earth successfully, then maybe Earth needed to take the fight to them. The question is whether we can even reach their ships, said Dr. Helen Grant, a propulsion specialist. Our spacecraft are not designed for combat. They are slow and fragile. Then we make new ones, Katie said. We have rockets that can reach orbit. We have weapons. We just need to put them together. A military engineer named Pete Carson joined the discussion. He was a big man with rough hands and a practical mind. I have been thinking about this. The aliens have advanced ships, but they are built for low-gravity species. What if we build ships that are heavy and tough? Ships that do not care about comfort or efficiency, just raw power and armor? Helen looked doubtful. That goes against everything we know about spacecraft design. Heavy ships need more fuel. More fuel means more weight. It is a bad cycle. Unless we do not care about the weight, Pete said. Look, the aliens are used to elegant, efficient designs because that is what works in their empire. But we are not elegant. We are tough. We can handle rough rides and high G-forces. Let us use that advantage. The discussion continued for hours. Slowly, a plan began to form. It was crazy and dangerous, but it might work. Meanwhile, the Valkyrie were preparing their third attempt. Elite warriors trained in special chambers that simulated Earth's gravity. They learned to move in the heavy armor, to conserve their energy, to fight smart instead of fighting hard. It was brutal training, and many warriors could not handle it. But those who succeeded were the toughest fighters the Empire had. Lieutenant Jake Morrison was still watching the alien fleet from Peterson Space Force Base. He had not slept much in the past 2 weeks. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those ships hanging in the sky like a threat that would never go away. His phone rang. It was Colonel Shaw. Jake, we need you at a briefing. Something is happening. At the briefing, intelligence officers showed satellite photos of increased activity around the Valkyrie ships. They are preparing something, one officer said. We think it is another invasion attempt, but different from the first two. Smaller ships, faster deployment. They might be trying hit-and-run tactics. Colonel Patricia Moore outlined the defensive response. We are fortifying key locations. Government buildings, military bases, power plants. If they try to strike specific targets, we will be ready. But Admiral Grant had something else in mind. She stood up and addressed the room. Defense is not enough. We need to go on offense. I have authorized a plan to attack the Valkyrie fleet directly. It is risky, but we cannot just wait for them to figure out how to beat us. The room went silent. Everyone knew that attacking the alien fleet was almost suicide. Human spacecraft were no match for Valkyrie warships, but doing nothing meant waiting for the aliens to adapt. 3 days later, the Valkyrie launched their third invasion. This time, they sent 20 small dropships to different targets around the world. Each ship carried only 10 warriors, but these were the best of the best. They hit fast and hard. In Washington, a Valkyrie team stormed a military facility. They moved quickly, knowing they only had minutes before the gravity overwhelmed them. They destroyed communication equipment and killed several guards before human reinforcements arrived. The battle was fierce but brief. The Valkyrie fought well, but they were outnumbered and slowed by the heavy gravity. All of them were killed or captured. Similar raids happened in London, Beijing, Moscow, and other major cities. The Valkyrie did more damage this time, but they still could not hold any position for long. The raids were expensive failures. The Empire lost some of its best warriors for very little gain. Nurse Sophie Turner worked at a military hospital where captured Valkyrie were being treated. She had gotten used to seeing the aliens in their special low-gravity chambers. They looked so helpless, so different from the feared warriors everyone had heard about. One Velkari could speak English. His name was Pektar, and he had been captured in the London raid. Sophie checked his vital signs while he lay in the chamber. "Your people cannot win," Pektar said quietly. "You know this, yes? We are more advanced. We have more ships, more weapons." Sophie looked at him. "Then why are you lying in that chamber while I walk around just fine? Seems to me that we have something you do not. A planet that protects us." Pektar was silent for a moment. "You are right. Your world is your fortress, but fortresses can be broken. Commander Zexthar will not give up. The Empire does not allow failure." "Then he is going to fail for the first time," Sophie said, "because we are not giving up either." In orbit, Zexthar received the reports from the third invasion attempt. More warriors lost, more equipment destroyed, and Earth was still free. He looked at the planet below, that beautiful blue world that should have been an easy conquest. Instead, it had become his nightmare. His communicator chimed again. Supreme Commander Vecnor appeared on screen, and his face was full of anger. 3 attempts, Zexthar. 3 failures. I am sending a new fleet to replace you. You have 1 week to achieve something, anything, that justifies the resources we have wasted on this planet. If you cannot do that, you will be brought back to the homeworld in chains. The screen went dark. Zexthar knew he was out of options. He could not invade Earth successfully. He could not retreat without punishment. There was only one thing left to consider, the thing his superiors had forbidden: orbital bombardment, destroying Earth's cities from space. It would make the planet less valuable, but at least it would be a victory of sorts. He called his weapons officer. "Prepare the bombardment systems, target the largest human cities. If we cannot conquer this world, we will at least make them pay for resisting us." But before he could give the final order, his sensor officer shouted a warning. "Commander!" Captain Danny Ross sat in the cockpit of his spacecraft, watching the Velkari fleet grow larger on his screen. His ship was not pretty. It was basically a rocket with armor welded onto it and missiles strapped to the sides. But it was fast and it could take a hit. That was all that mattered. "Strike Team Alpha, this is Strike Leader," Danny said into his radio. "Stay in formation. Remember your training. We go in fast, we hit hard, and we get out. Do not try to be heroes." 40 voices responded, acknowledging his orders. Danny looked at the faces on his communication screen. Fighter pilots, astronauts, test pilots. They were the best Earth had, and they were flying into a battle that would probably kill most of them. But nobody had hesitated when volunteers were called for. In the command center at Cape Canaveral, Admiral Grant watched the radar displays. The human strike force was almost in range of the Velkari fleet. She knew this was a desperate move, but desperate was all they had. "All ships are reporting ready," Lieutenant Commander Karen Phillips said. She was coordinating the strike from the ground. "Weapons are armed. Pilots are ready," Grant nodded. "Give them the green light." On Zexthar's flagship, the weapons officer was tracking the approaching human ships. "Commander, they are in range. Should I open fire?" Zexthar watched the human ships on his display. They were moving in a loose formation. Not the tight precision he would expect from a professional military, but there were many of them. "Fire at will. Destroy them all." Energy beams lanced out from the Velkari ships. The first volley caught 3 human ships, cutting through their armor and turning them into balls of fire. Danny saw the explosions on his screen and felt his stomach drop. But he kept his voice steady. "All ships begin evasive maneuvers. Pattern Delta." The human ships broke formation and scattered. They moved in ways that should not have been possible. Sharp turns, sudden accelerations, crazy spirals. The G-forces pressed Danny back into his seat. He could feel his vision starting to narrow, but he stayed conscious. His body, built for Earth's heavy gravity, could handle the punishment. On the Velkari flagship, the weapons officer was having trouble tracking the human ships. "Commander, they are moving too erratically." "I cannot get a lock," Zexthar frowned. "How fast are they turning?" The sensor officer checked his readings. 8 Gs, sometimes more. That should be impossible. No pilot should be able to stay conscious in those turns. But the humans were staying conscious. More than that, they were fighting back. Missiles launched from the human ships streaking toward the Velkari fleet. The Velkari point defense system shot down most of them, but some got through. Explosions bloomed against the hulls of alien ships. "Return fire," Zexthar shouted. "All ships engage the enemy." The space around Earth lit up with weapons fire. Energy beams and missiles filled the void. More human ships died, blown apart by superior Velkari technology, but the humans kept coming. They flew through the weapons fire like they did not care about dying. Danny pulled his ship into a hard turn, pushing 10 Gs. The world went gray at the edges, but he fought to stay conscious. His targeting computer locked onto a Velkari cruiser. He fired all his missiles at once, then pulled away in another impossible turn. The missiles struck the Velkari ship's engines. The alien vessel shuddered and began to drift, its power failing. Danny allowed himself a small smile. First blood. But the smile disappeared when an energy beam clipped his ship. Alarm screamed. His right wing was gone and he was losing air from the cockpit. Danny sealed his helmet and fought with the controls. The ship was barely responding, but he managed to keep it flying. "Strike leader is hit," he said into the radio. "I am still in the fight." More human ships were getting destroyed. The Velkari weapons were just too powerful, but every time a human ship died, it took several Velkari ships with it. The humans were trading their lives at a rate that made no military sense, but they were making the aliens pay dearly. Zexathar watched in growing horror as his fleet took damage. The human ships should have been easy targets, but they were moving too fast, turning too sharply. His pilots tried to match their maneuvers, but when they pulled high G turns, they blacked out. The Velkari bodies, designed for low gravity, could not handle the strain. "Pull back," one of his ship captains said over the radio. His voice sounded strained. "I have lost 3 pilots to G-induced blackouts. We cannot fight like this." "Stay in formation," Zexthar ordered, but even as he said it, he knew the battle was slipping away. The humans had found another advantage. In space, where gravity did not crush them, the humans could push their ships harder than the Velkari could push theirs. Pete Carson's design philosophy was proving correct. The human ships were heavy and rough. They burned fuel at terrible rates. They would be useless for long-distance space travel, but for short, brutal combat, they were perfect. They could take damage that would cripple a Velkari ship and keep fighting. Lieutenant Commander Karen Phillips watched the battle from Earth. The losses were heavy. More than half the human ships were gone. But the Velkari fleet was suffering too. Several of their ships were dead in space. Others were pulling back, damaged and unable to continue fighting. "We are hurting them," she said to Admiral Grant. "We are actually hurting them." Grant watched the displays. "But we are losing too many pilots. At this rate, we will run out of ships before they do." Then something changed. Danny Ross, flying his damaged ship, saw an opening. The Velkari flagship was isolated, separated from the rest of the fleet by a gap in their formation. Danny checked his fuel levels. He had enough for one more attack run. "All remaining ships, this is Strike Leader. I am going after their flagship. Follow me if you can," 6 ships responded. 7 ships total against the most powerful warship in the Velkari fleet. It was suicide, but it might work. Danny pushed his damaged ship to maximum speed. The G-forces crushed him into his seat. His vision tunneled. He could barely breathe. But he kept his hand on the controls, kept the ship pointed at the enemy flagship. Zexthar saw the human ships coming straight at him. "All weapons fire on those ships. Stop them." Energy beams filled the space between the flagship and the human attackers. 2 human ships exploded. A third lost control and spun away into the void. But 4 ships made it through, including Danny's battered craft. "Ramming speed," Danny said. He did not know if anyone heard him. He did not care. He armed his last missiles and fired them all. Then he aimed his ship at the flagship's bridge. Zexathar saw the human ship coming right at him. He tried to move to give orders, but time seemed to slow down. The human ship slammed into the bridge section. The impact threw Zexthar across the room. Alarms blared. The lights went out. When emergency power came back on, Zexthar pulled himself up. His bridge was destroyed. Half his crew was dead, and through the cracked viewport, he could see more human ships approaching. Not attack ships this time. Boarding craft. Commander Ryan Mitchell led the boarding team. They were Marines trained for ship-to-ship combat. They wore heavy armor and carried powerful weapons. But they had one advantage the Velkari did not expect. They could move in 0 gravity while wearing armor that would make a Velkari warrior immobile. Mitchell's team cut through the hull of the Velkari flagship. They entered the ship and moved through the corridors quickly. The Velkari crew tried to fight back, but they were at a severe disadvantage. In the confined spaces of the ship, wearing heavy combat armor, the Velkari were slow and clumsy. The human Marines moved like they were born for this. Zexthar tried to organize a defense, but his ship was in chaos. Systems were failing. Crew members were injured or dead, and the humans kept coming, fighting their way toward the bridge. A human marine kicked open the door to the bridge. He pointed his weapon at Zexthar. Behind him, more marines poured in. They secured the room in seconds. Commander Mitchell stepped forward. He looked at Zexthar through his helmet. "I am Commander Ryan Mitchell of the Earth Defense Forces. Surrender your ship or we will take it by force." Zexthar looked around. His crew was dead or wounded. His ship was crippled. The battle was lost. He had failed. The Empire would never forgive him, but at least he could save the lives of his remaining crew. "I surrender," Zexthar said quietly. The word spread quickly through the Velkari fleet. The flagship had been captured. Commander Zexthar was prisoner. The remaining alien ships stopped fighting. They did not retreat, but they did not attack either. They just waited to see what would happen next. On Earth, people watched the news reports in amazement. The battle was over. Humanity had won. The alien fleet was beaten. Cities erupted in celebration. People poured into the streets crying and laughing and hugging strangers. Admiral Grant allowed herself a moment of relief. But only a moment. The war might be over, but now came the hard part. What would Earth do with 40 alien warships and several thousand alien prisoners? And more importantly, what would the Velkari Empire do when they learned that their fleet had been defeated? In his cell aboard the captured flagship, Zexthar sat alone. He had lost everything: his fleet, his honor, his career. He thought about Supreme Commander Vecnor's last message. The Empire did not accept failure. But as he sat there, Zexthar found himself thinking about something else. The humans had been impressive. Not just strong, but clever. They had taken over. The cultural exchange with the Velkari Empire began slowly. Some Velkari scientists came to Earth to study, though they had to live in special low-gravity habitats. Some humans went to Velkari worlds, where they found the low gravity made them incredibly strong and agile. Nurse Sophie Turner became friends with one of the Velkari scientists, a young female named Kiravel. They would sit in the observation lounge of the orbital station, looking down at Earth. "Your world is beautiful," Kiravel said, "but it frightens me. The battle for Earth had lasted only 3 hours, but it changed everything. For the first time in history, humanity knew they were not alone in the universe. More importantly, they knew they could fight. They could win." Jake Morrison stood in the captured Velkari flagship, looking at the alien technology around him. Everything was strange and beautiful in ways he could not describe. The walls seemed to glow with their own light. The controls responded to touch in patterns he did not understand. This was technology centuries ahead of anything Earth had built. Colonel Shaw walked up beside him. "Hard to believe, is it not? Yesterday we thought we were about to be conquered. Today we own a fleet of alien warships," Jake nodded. "What are we going to do with them, sir?" "Study them, learn from them, and hope the rest of the Velkari Empire does not come looking for revenge." That was the question everyone was asking. The Velkari Empire had lost one fleet, but they had hundreds more. Would they send reinforcements? Would they try to destroy Earth rather than let the defeat stand? President Foster called an emergency meeting of world leaders. For the first time in human history, every nation on Earth had to work together on something. The alien threat had united humanity in a way that nothing else ever had. Ambassador Nicole Stevens was chosen to lead the diplomatic effort. She was young for such an important job, only 35, but she was smart and calm under pressure. Her job was to figure out how to talk to the Velkari Empire without starting a war humanity could not win. The first step was talking to the prisoners. Commander Zexthar was brought to a conference room in the captured flagship. He looked tired and defeated. Across from him sat Nicole, along with Admiral Grant and several advisors. "Commander Zexthar," Nicole said, "we need to talk about what happens next. Your empire will learn that your fleet was defeated. What will they do?" Zexthar was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. "I do not know. The Empire has never lost like this before. We have never failed to conquer a world we wanted. The High Command will be angry. They might send more ships. They might try to destroy Earth from long range. Or they might decide Earth is too much trouble and leave you alone. Which option do you think is most likely?" Admiral Grant asked. Zexthar looked at her. "The Empire does not like to look weak. If word spreads that humans defeated us, other worlds might rebel. The Empire has many conquered planets. Most of them do not want to be part of the Empire. Fear keeps them in line. If that fear is broken, everything falls apart. Nicole leaned forward. So what you are saying is that your Empire needs to save face. They need to make this look like something other than a defeat. Yes, Zexthar said. If you give them a way to retreat without looking weak, they might take it. But if you humiliate them, they will have no choice but to fight. Over the next several days, Nicole worked with a team to craft a message to the Velkari Empire. It was tricky. Earth needed to be firm, to make it clear they would not surrender. But they also needed to give the Empire a way out. Dr. Alan Cooper was part of the team helping with the message. He had been studying the Velkari communication systems. Their language is complex, but I think I understand the basics. They value honor and strength. We need to phrase things in a way that respects that. Katie Walsh added her own thoughts. We should also point out the scientific value of what happened here. The Velkari have never encountered a high-gravity species before. Maybe we can frame this as a learning opportunity, rather than a military defeat. The message was sent out on all frequencies the Velkari used. It was simple and direct. Earth acknowledged the strength of the Velkari Empire. Earth recognized that the Empire had superior technology, but Earth also pointed out that the universe was big and diverse. Not every world could be conquered. Some worlds like Earth had natural defenses that made invasion impractical. Rather than fight a long and costly war, perhaps both sides could benefit from peaceful contact. The message ended with an offer. Earth would return the Velkari prisoners and ships in exchange for a peace treaty and cultural exchange. The Empire could claim they had decided to spare Earth for strategic reasons. Nobody had to call it a defeat. While waiting for a response, Earth started preparing for the worst. Pete Carson was given unlimited resources to build more spacecraft. The successful attack had proven that human pilots could fight in space. Now they needed more ships and better ships. We won because we surprised them, Pete said to Admiral Grant. Next time, if there is a next time, they will be ready for our tactics. We need to stay ahead. Engineers and scientists around the world worked day and night. They studied the captured Velkari ships, learning how the alien technology worked. Some of it was too advanced to understand, but some of it could be adapted for human use. Lieutenant Commander Karen Phillips was put in charge of training new space pilots. After the battle, volunteers had flooded in from every nation. Everyone wanted to be a spacefighter pilot now. We lost a lot of good people in that fight, Karen said to her training class. Captain Danny Ross gave his life to capture that flagship. 37 other pilots died in the battle. We won, but it cost us. Never forget that. Space combat is not a game. It is brutal and deadly. Danny Ross had become a hero on Earth. His sacrifice was remembered in every city. Monuments were built. His name became famous. But Karen knew him as just a guy who loved flying and did his duty. She wished he could have lived to see what he helped create. 3 weeks after the battle, the Velkari Empire responded. A single ship arrived in Earth's orbit. It carried an ambassador and a small crew. Nicole Stevens met with them on neutral ground, aboard a space station that had been quickly built for this purpose. The Velkari ambassador was named Selakun. She was older than most Velkari Nicole had seen, her skin a darker blue. She spoke carefully, choosing her words with precision. The High Command has reviewed your message, Selakun said. We have decided to accept your offer of peace. The prisoners and ships will be returned. In exchange, we will establish diplomatic relations with Earth. Nicole felt relief wash over her. We accept these terms. Earth wants peace with the Velkari Empire. Selakun nodded slowly. I must be honest with you. There were many in the High Command who wanted to continue the war. They wanted to send more fleets to bombard your world from long range. But cooler heads prevailed. The truth is, your world has taught us something important. We have become comfortable conquering only low-gravity worlds. We have avoided challenges. Perhaps that has made us weak in some ways. What changed their minds? Nicole asked Commander Zexthar's final report. He wrote that humans were not just lucky. You were strong in ways the Empire had never encountered. He suggested that the Empire could learn from you. That instead of conquering every world we find, perhaps we should seek allies. That argument, combined with the cost of sending another fleet, was enough to convince them to try peace. The treaty was signed 1 month later. Every nation on Earth participated in the ceremony. The Velkari prisoners were returned to their empire, along with most of the captured ships. Earth kept 3 of the vessels for study, which the Empire allowed as part of the agreement. Commander Zexthar was the last prisoner to leave. Before boarding the ship that would take him home, he met with Colonel Shaw one final time. "I was wrong about your people," Zexthar said. "I thought you were primitive. I thought your world would be easy to conquer. I did not understand that gravity could be a weapon. I did not understand how tough you are." Shaw shook his hand, a human gesture that Zexthar had learned. "You are a good soldier, Commander. You did your duty. No shame in that. The Empire will punish me for failing," Zexthar said, "but I have learned something worth more than rank or honor. I have learned that the universe is bigger and more interesting than I thought. There are many kinds of strength. Yours is just different from ours." After the Velkari left, Earth began to change rapidly. The war had united the world in ways nothing else could. Nations that had been enemies worked together now. The space program became humanity's top priority. Dr. Alan Cooper and Dr. Helen Grant led the effort to understand Velkari technology. It would take decades to fully understand how their ships worked, but even the small advances they made pushed human technology forward by years. Jake Morrison was promoted to Major and given command of Earth's first real space defense station. From his position in orbit, he could see the whole planet. It looked small and fragile from up here, but he knew better now. Earth was protected by something more powerful than weapons or shields. It was protected by its own gravity. Katie Walsh started a new program to search for other high-gravity worlds. If Earth's gravity made humans strong, maybe there were other species out there with the same advantage. Species that the Velkari had never encountered because they avoided high-gravity planets.